Today we're talking about one of the original G.I. Joes from 1982, a founding member of a real American hero. But despite that early entry into the franchise, don't worry, we'll be done here in a flash. Yes, you guessed it, today is all about Flash. Anthony Gambello was born in Lodi, California, while his Action Force counterpart was born in Birmingham, England. While growing up, Flash always showed a deep understanding of electronics and how their components work. In high school, Gambello was the quarterback for the Lodi High School football team, and later he was able to take both of these skills, physical prowess and his intellect, to the United States Army. And there, after going through basic, he became an 11 Bravo infantry and then went to electronics school to earn a 94Y MOS, trained in covert electronics, allowing him to do field maintenance on equipment, combat vehicles, infantry and artillery fire control systems, and help with preventative maintenance checks, ensuring everything was programmed, installed, and running properly at all times. This makes him an IFTE operator/maintainer. His file card also notes CBR, which is now called CBRN, meaning chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. This gives him a third 74 Delta MOS, a CBRN specialist, and another 11 weeks of advanced individual training. Since he's one of the original 13, there's a lot of specialty in MOS blend to ensure that all aspects of their operations and missions are covered. Flash's 1991 Impel trading card says that Flash is fast. He usually has only 5 minutes to figure out an integrated electronics defense network, break into the security log, and rig it to detonate without blowing himself up. Being quick isn't just important, his life depends on it. So Impel went into the speed definition. However, since he's an electronics specialist, it can refer to flashing on a computer. Like when you update the code, a computer BIOS, meaning basic input-output system, you're flashing the BIOS. Without those updates, the operating system can't function at peak efficiency or even at all. You can just imagine how important something like that would be to warfighters in really any battle space. Flash is also an expert with an M16 rifle, his M1911 sidearm, and his XMLR-1 Alpha shoulder-fired laser rifle. On the website 3djoes.com, figure designer Ron Rudat commented on why lasers were included with G.I. Joe, and his answer is fairly simple. He wanted to give the line something futuristic, and he thought it would be cool to add lasers, and it's also why he got the padding to protect him from the lasers. Visually, like tracer rounds, it gives the artists, be it comic books or storyboard artists for animation, a way to show rounds being fired downrange in an easy manner. On a 2009 file card, it's noted that he keeps the team armed with cutting-edge, high-energy laser weapons and pulse energy projectile systems, and now his preferred weapon is the DO Series electromagnetic tactical anti-aircraft laser cannon. And also during this time, Gambello was going to night school to earn a master's degree in electronics engineering. Because Flash was one of the original 13 of the ARH team, the way he came to the G.I. Joes was told in the Larry Hama penned G.I. Joe Declassified miniseries through Devil's Due Publishing in 2006. In the book, Flash was driving with Steeler on Staten Island in New York. They were headed for the motor pool at Fort Wadsworth, and inside they were the first two to encounter the mysterious 14th original, Sergeant Jody Shooter Craig. Pre-G.I. Joe, Flash was at Aberdeen Proving Grounds working in the covert electronics shop when General Flagg came in looking for the person who came up with all the improvements on the laser rangefinders. That's when Specialist Anthony S. Gambello introduced himself. Flagg asked him, "How far away is that water tower?" Flash said about putting together his equipment, promising to fix it in a flash. But Flagg stopped him and made him use his eyes and his brain. He estimated it out to 240 yards, utilizing his football experience for the range and yardage. That was enough for General Flagg. He had Sparks get Flash set up for a transfer to the pit. In the present day, Hawk had Short Fuse and Flash get some sleep before their next mission. That mission was Operation Lady Doomsday, which took place in the very first issue of Larry Hama and Marvel Comics' G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero comic book series. One of the very first things that we see inside the book is Flash, who's operating the HAL, the heavy artillery laser, even though that toy actually came with Grand Slam. For the mission to a Cobra-controlled island to rescue Dr. Adele Burkhart, Flash was paired with Breaker and tasked with picking up the radar installation. They landed on the beach in a Zodiac. Flash assured Stalker that the mission profile hadn't changed. At the unmanned radar site, Flash and Breaker worked together to find the wiring, though it ended up being encased in quarter-inch steel piping. Flash used his laser rifle to melt the steel. Breaker was mad at him because if Flash had cut the wiring and severed the cable, the mission would have been blown. Their plan was to tap the line and broadcast an all-clear signal to deceive Cobra. This cover allowed Bravo team to make their landing assault in the hydrofoil LCT. They were then able to all break into Cobra Commander's main stronghold to free the Doctor. In issue 3, Flash was with Snake Eyes and Stalker 6 levels down into the pit in the arms room stowing weapons when the Cobra robot they had there activated itself and trapped the Joes in those sublevels. Flash Flash said that the heavy weapons in the armory with them could knock the door down, but the blast would kill them. A laser rifle on full power would eat up too much oxygen in the room and they would suffocate. So Flash proposed using his laser rifle on low power, concentrating on the lock mechanism to eventually force the door open. It would take more time, but it would be much safer. Eventually, he blasted through and saved Snake Eyes and Stalker and linked up with the others to stop the giant mech. In issue 6, Stalker, Scarlet Breaker, Clutch, Stealer, and Grand Slam were sent on a mission with the RTV, that's the rough terrain vehicle, to recover the wreckage of a downed spy plane. But it ended up being Flash who went in Grand Slam's place. They were racing against both the Soviet Union and Cobra to the crash site. For the mission, Flash manned the weapons control station aboard the RTV. At a cliff, they were ambushed from an elevated position, so Flash was able to bring the RTV's cannons to bear on the hostiles, laying down some intense suppressive fire. And then, when they got to the other side of the canyon, the RTV transformed, allowing Flash to get direct fire onto the October Guard, with them now holding the high ground advantage. Cobra Commander and his troops ended up capturing both Flash's team and the October Guard, but as you'd expect, that didn't last long and Flash and the team counterattacked. Inside the Cobra facility, Flash had to shoot a swarm of Cobra snakes with his laser rifle. It turns out the whole thing was a distraction and the crashed spy plane wreckage had been airlifted out of the country already. For the op to protect a space shuttle launch at Cape Canaveral in Florida, Hawk put Flash and Breaker on the actual orbiter with the flight crew, making them the first of the Joes on this team to get to space. Not only that, but when the Cobra fired an ASAT missile at them, they both conducted EVAs, a spacewalk in other words, where Flash flew to the missile and changed its trajectory all by himself by breaking into the electronics and screwing up the internal gyros. Flash was then on a primary assault team that was tasked with assaulting a Cobra stronghold in Midtown Manhattan, while the infiltration team made a top-down assault starting from the roof, and a third team infiltrated from the sewers and into the basement. Then after Cobra attacked Washington, D.C., Flash was with Zap, Grunt, Short Fuse, and Rock and Roll in the APC as they chased Cobra Commander and Destro out of the city with help from Ace, who was providing air support in his Sky Striker. Continuing the chase of Destro, Flash then reported to McGuire Air Force Base to load onto a transport plane with the G.I. Joes, a Dragonfly, a Vamp, a motorcycle, and with Ace as their fighter escort. And together as a team, they headed for a secret Cobra base in the middle of Libya, 100 miles south of Tripoli. Back stateside, right after the pit was attacked and destroyed, Flash was working with Short Fuse and Torpedo in the flooded computer bay. Not only did he have to deal with all that water and the flooded circuitry and electronics components, but he also had to deal with Short Fuse's bad jokes. In issue 33, General Austin came to the pit for a ceremony where a few of the Joes, Flash included, were promoted one pay grade and eligible for a presidential unit citation, but this was an award that they could never wear, that is, until Congress declassified the Joes' operations, which was never going to happen. For the Ripcord rescue mission to Cobra-controlled Springfield, Flash was on the security team and tasked with coordinating with the strike team to take the airport, then lock down all roads in and out of Springfield. Flash was one of the very few Joes who were not taken in after the battle on Cobra Island, and so he was able to join the rescue mission to get Generals Hawk and Hollingsworth out of St. Lo's Infirmary. For that mission, he was rear security with Bazooka and Barbecue. And this was in the latter part of the 1980s, in a time when Sci-Fi had more or less supplanted Flash's role as the quote-unquote laser guy. This was pretty much the last time we'd see Flash in the Marvel era run on the comic book. He largely took a rear echelon role, working on base all the way up until the team was disbanded in 1994 and the pit mothballed. He did show up again many years later at the ceremony at the pit to honor Snake Eyes, who'd just fallen in battle in a fight with Serpentor. In IDW's issue 216, he used his lasers to seal up the secret base within the pit that housed that big alien eye that was going to lead to a crossover story that never got off the ground. And then later he joined the all-hands-on-deck rescue mission to recover Sean Collins' throwdown from Laura 343 and Cobra in Springfield. So for that mission, he loaded onto bus number 2 for the voyage from the pit in Utah all the way to Springfield. And in Springfield, he helped hold off Cobra in the Springfield Community Center parking lot while the Ninja and Airborne teams extracted their battle buddy from the building. In Image Comics' G.I. Joe Frontline issue 11 in 2003 by Brandon Jerwa, at a time when Devil's Due was still part of Image Comics, Flash, referred to as Gambello here, was at Right Pat and reporting for duty along with Schnurr, Sneeden, and Skoog. This was Flash, Beachhead, Tripwire, and Airtight. This team was pulled together to infiltrate a bioweapons lab inside of an airplane stashed inside of a hangar in the remote, snowy Rocky Mountains. Flash was included here to crack the electronics lock if necessary. Airtight would handle the flesh-eating Death Angel virus. Tripwire would debug the plane if it was wired to detonate, while Beachhead would serve as their team leader. They were heloed in, and to the tune of some Johnny Cash, they jumped over the target, which was the snowy Wingfield installation in Colorado, run by Tyler Wingfield, the son of a domestic extremist named Vance Wingfield from the very earliest issues of G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero. With boots on the ground, Flash was rear security for the line march to the hangar where the plane was parked. Flash couldn't crack the code, so instead he used his laser rifle to cut through the door, though they made contact with Tyler Wingfield's soldiers soon thereafter. They were captured and Wingfield wanted to force Chuckles to kill one of the Joes to prove his allegiance. Chuckles had already been there as he was working an undercover op at the same time. And then at the last moment they were saved by an intelligence operative named Calder who'd been working with Chuckles. In the 25th issue of Image Comics' G.I. Joe comic book series during the assault on Cobra Island and Serpentor's cult called the Coil, Flash was paired up with Mainframe and working with Mercer, Hacker, Jinx, and Sci-Fi to blow the generator housing and emergency server junction for the EMP cannon tower. On the way to minimum safe distance, they were trapped danger close by some of the Coil and were caught in the blast when the generator blew, and both lost their lives in that conflict. In 2007's G.I. Joe vs. Transformers, he was in the Himalayas of Tibet with Sci-Fi and Red Spot as the Laser Squad during the Black Horizon story, trying to stop both Cobra Law and Unicron. He was also deployed with Battle Action Force in the 1980s, such as when he teamed up with Recondo and Ripcord for Operation Snakebite. Action Force had another laser rifle trooper, Jack Watts, codenamed Bombardier. Though no relation, the G.I. Joes had a UK member using the Bombardier name, government name Connor Tree, whose figure was created using the Sergeant Flash figure. Interestingly, in 1993, Larry Hama wrote for the Punisher Warzone following Chuck Dixon and Dan Abnett on writing duties. In issue 20 of Punisher Warzone, Hama created the Cosa Nostra affiliated Gambello crime family, headed up by Don Gambello. No relation, but it seems like he likes the Gambello name. And then, voiced by Rob Paulson and Frank Welker, Flash appeared in just a few episodes of Sunbow's G.I. Joe animated series. He didn't get a ton of play in this series, and one of the issues here with that is redundancy. With everyone using a laser rifle, what's the relevancy of a laser weapons specialist? In the original ARH miniseries, Flash was around, but he didn't really say a lot. We do get to see him fighting a couple times, though. He did join the Sea of Ice team, which was him, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Snowjob, and Tripwire. This is when we see Flash using his weapon, but here it's a flamethrower and not a laser rifle, which he used to help take out the Snake armor bots. In part 4, we see him in a Dragonfly and later using a jump pack at the Ring of Fire to land on and fight their way into a big Cobra craft. And again in part 5, he uses the jump pack during some mountain climbing where they took G.I. Joe heavy armor straight up a sheer cliff face to assault a Cobra fortress. In Operation Mind Menace, Flash and Airborne were near Rapa Nui, aka Easter Island, in a Dragonfly helicopter. They were following a Cobra in a Fangcopter who had a kidnap victim with him. They ended up in an aerial gun battle with two Fangs, and one of them activated a Moai statue that had lasers in its eyes. Flash and Airborne were shut down and captured on the beach. They were taken before Cobra Commander and Destro, where Flash remained ever defiant, even though he was stuck in a cage. Soon thereafter, Cobra left, leaving Flash and Airborne on the island to battle the Moai statues alone. They had to shoot and scoot to avoid being stepped on, and just as the island was destroyed, Duke and LJ showed up in a pair of Skyhawks to rescue them. Then acting on intel, they then threw on some cold weather gear and headed to K-12, a mountain in the Himalayas, and that's when we see Flash with Stalker on a snowmobile. They also met up with that Hawaiian girl that had been captured as part of Cobra's Mind Menace operations. So Flash, Stalker, Blowtorch, Airborne, and Duke, along with a couple psionic people, fought back and managed to escape with a big assist from Airborne's brother, Tommy, who'd also been captured. Flash was also in the Lasers in the Night episode, but he didn't say anything. He was just a briefing for a few minutes. Flash's first action figure came out with the original Joes in 1982 with the straight arm treatment and of course got the swivel arms. The figure was reissued via the Operation Freedom Has Begun and Get Your Gear mail offers. He came with his orange pads that seemed like some sort of Molly plate carrier, but we also know that they're padding to protect from his own laser rifle. According to some sources, at one point, due to non-use, Hasbro lost the rights to the Flash name, just like what happened with Bumblebee, notably when Mattel paired with DC Comics on the Justice League line. And so, his name became Anthony Flash Gambello, or Sergeant Flash from this point on, essentially circumventing the restriction. The 2005 version of Flash came in a 3-pack with Rock and Roll and Short Fuse, and here he was now clad in all white using parts from Action Astronaut, a spacesuit used for the Mercury series of U.S. manned spaceflights. In 2007, Flash was included in the Tanks for the Memories box set, which was a convention exclusive release. Here he was now called Sergeant Flash, and he came with the same type of weapon we see in 1991 with Sci-Fi. His MOSs here were changed to a laser weapon system specialist and 45 Golf, a fire control repairer. This allowed him to operate things like striker-mounted M-SHORAD systems, which included the direct energy capabilities to ID, track, and neutralize manned and unmanned rotary and fixed-wing threats. Sergeant Flash appeared again in 2008 for the 25th anniversary wave, but now was re-equipped with the laser rifle. Then, for the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra line, Flash was now all black and called Anthony Flash Gambello on his packaging. This one came with a giant laser cannon and an H&K XM8 rifle, a weapon that borrows heavily from H&K's G36 rifle. 2013 gave us a Creon version of Flash as part of Wave 2 of the minifig release. In Brazil, Flash was released by Estrella for the Commandos MSAO line as Raio Laser Nome de Código Electron, which translates to Laser Beam Codename Electron, and I will apologize right now for my pronunciation there. Flash's body was also used for a figure named Steel Cobra. To sum up Flash, we again turn to his file cards with a quote: "Flash is methodical and persistent. He has an innate and unshakable faith in the order of the universe. And that, at its core, is who Flash is." And with that, that's a wrap on this, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.